Aloha everyone and welcome to another Tinker's Academy video. I'm your host Kay Elmer and this is part two of a two-part video interview that I had with Philip von Holzendorf of Leila Quantum Tech. Thank you very much, Philip. And in this part two is where we cover the 5 frequently asked questions that are popping up over and over and over in our Telegram chat group. So those 5 questions that we talk about in this video is number one, mixing and matching frequencies, which comes up all the time. Like, how many frequencies is too many frequencies? Which ones go well together, and that sort of things, and which ones shouldn't go well. And even Philip threw in some like what time of day would be better to use certain ones. So so he provides. I basically was just pinging him, with all these different questions. Number two that we talk about is cards versus capsules versus blocks, which is a question that pops up all the time about, hey, I'm thinking about, I want to try this, and should I get a Q block or I block, or should a card or capsule? So we talk about, what the devices are and what they're best for. And that was one number 2 question. The third one we talk about is using frequencies with blocks. Like how do I put something in an eye block and then permeate that frequency throughout the field, that sort of thing, and what's the best practices for that. Number 4 is something that comes up all the time, and it's just people, are just trying to see, how can quantum energy or these frequencies or both, right? How can it help them with their overall health and wellness? Because so many people post, I know so-and-so with this, or I have this issue, and, and would this be good for that? And so this is something that I really wanted to kind of cover with Philip to kind of address in general and just really talk about, how this can work for you. And the last one is one of my crazy tinks where, it's about how to, using the Q block or the I block or the quantum energy in general and charging you. We talk a lot about charging objects, plants and jewelry and water and, so forth. But, one of the things that kind of gets overlooked sometimes is charging ourselves. And what are all the do's and don'ts and recommendations from Philip for that? So it's a great conversation. I think this is probably an awesome aspect of the user guide, right? So I just wanted to share that with you. This is part 2. Without further ado, let's jump right into the content and where I'm talking with Philip in the interview. But first, let's cover the disclaimers. Neither Leila Quantum Tech nor the Tinker's Academy recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned in this video. Reliance on any information appearing and discussed in this video is solely at everyone's own risk. Statements made have not been evaluated by the EFSA or FDA or any government derivatives thereof. Leila Quantum Tech products and products that Leila Quantum Tech may represent are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. There you go. All right, let's jump in. All right, so let's jump into the FAQs. Now, what I did was, this is the list, everybody, and I just picked 5 because I want to keep the video reasonable. And, we kind of started touching on to this one, which is like, and these are just me reading the chat. I read everything. And so it's kind of just seems like the number one thing people have been asking about is mixing and matching frequencies. So, and you and I had just touched on like which ones go well with each other. It's kind of like that old Sesame Street, thing that our kids watch, right? That old song, which ones are not like the others, right? And so, yeah, it's like which ones go well with it. But the first question that always comes up, and I've answered it myself, so what's your answer to, how many is too many? Because just right off the bat, the nutritional bio base is like 60 different things. The men's booster and the women's booster, literally over 60 different frequencies blended into one set, right? So when you start mixing and matching, you could end up with hundreds of different frequencies all in, you're carrying around all at the same time. So how many is too many, or does the body just use what it needs? So what's your advice on that? Mixing and matching frequencies.
Yeah, so I try to differentiate a little bit between those, molecular frequencies, how you describe them, like the biobase or the women's booster, man's booster, and then some of the other ones. In general, on a higher level, I would say, look at what you would like to work on, and then see if that relates to each other. So if you have some sleep problems, you may as well start off with the inner peace, because it may just be a little bit of your mind and something that is just so present within you that you're wrapping your mind around the whole time, that you can't let go or can't figure out whatever. And then the inner peace may be a great way to actually help with that. And then possibly the sleep and rest would actually be something that you can use in addition to that. So those would go really well with each other. For an example, we said the forever young and the heal frequency would go well together. Something that, I don't think would go so well together is, well, it's actually hard to say because there's also no general rules, right? So, but the Agni power and the sleep and rest, for example, would really exclude themselves a little bit, because the Agni power is, while it really stimulates the heart chakra to, help that the unconditional love becomes the main force in our lives, it has quite some energetic power to it that we've found and recommended that people should just wear this throughout the day and not at night. So that just from that standpoint, it wouldn't really go with the sleep and rest, which we would only use at night and not during the day, because you don't necessarily want to sleep during the day.
Yeah, you're
So
right. Yeah, okay.
I would not, and I would not focus on too many things at the same time. So if, let's say, if someone has real money issues, right? Something with the money flow is really off with the wealth. You just, work your ass off and you do what you can, and you're just not getting there. It's, there is ways to actually establish that frequency and that resonance field within us to actually attract that and to get through these blockages or things that are in the way. And it may actually be our own belief system, right? And that we're just not consciously aware of. So those things the prosperity card helps with. So, but if I want to work on something like that, I don't take the happiness, the forever young, and the inner peace God all together and work on all those things. It's just, if you learn how to play tennis, for 10-15 minutes you're going to work on your serve, and then maybe later you're going to practice your forehand and things like that. And that's how you learn better, and that's how you focus better. So you don't want to take in too much at the same time, because then the focus is gone, and then it just waters things down. So if you want to have better and faster results, just use that for a while, or use the prosperity for a day, and then if you feel like, okay, you want now inner peace next day, you mix them up. That doesn't really matter, but I wouldn't suggest to use too many at the same time. It's not going to help you too much.
Okay.
Whereas we can say that abundance in general is something that abundance is way broader than prosperity, because that's really the inner abundance. And once you can create inner abundance, also abundance will reflect in the outer life, and prosperity would be a part of it. So in a way, those two go pretty well together. And last point now, to those physical or molecular frequencies. Yeah, 75 or 76, minerals, vitamins, and all that sounds like a lot, but in the end of the day, it's also not so much, especially because they're the way they're created is that they actually support the human body in an optimal way. It's actually, there's have been some scientists over 3 decades that actually came up with this bio-based mix that we're using for that. So even on a physical level, that works perfectly. So on an energetic level, totally fine.
Yeah,
So
because
I wouldn't worry about that.
yeah, because they all do
Go
a
ahead.
very specific thing in your body. I mean, if you take 30 different minerals, each one has a purpose. And well, that's why our bodies require, like, what is it, the 82 different minerals in the world? There's a purpose for every single one of those minerals in our body, because we are of Earth, right? But yeah, okay, good. No, that's a really
Yeah.
good explanation. So it's kind of like, think about what you want to achieve and hone in on that one, and then just hone in on it. And Like you would not want to try a testosterone booster and then try to get some sleep, kind of thing, right? Because
Probably
yeah,
not.
yeah,
Yeah.
because these like the boosters are going to give you energy, and so you can't relax and then have energy at the same time. So that makes sense. So okay, so yeah, everybody out there, just really hone in on what is your target, what do you want to, what's your objective, and then what would best support that, and then in terms of mixing and matching frequencies, because a lot of people have the heal capsule, and that's their biggest question is I have a heal, so which ones could I add with the heal? And so because heal is
Yep.
primal human healing, which supports your life, then I think, well, is there anything that wouldn't go with heal?
Well, so the thing is that the heal frequency that's in the capsules also contains the primal healing water frequency as well as the biobase. So that's all
Right.
included in that one. So I'm not too sure if I would want to use the testosterone booster or the men's booster together with it. I've tested those, and I would. So that's my personal opinion for myself, that I would use them like in a rotating fashion versus in parallel. And this may be because maybe those are too many things to focus on. I don't know, but it may also be different for other people.
Right.
So yeah, I think a lot of things go with it well, but then we found, for example, that people that have gotten the thing in their arm, that if they had now the DNA and cells protect, um, also wanting to try the heal with it, it was actually too much for them.
Oh.
It wasn't too much for the ones that had not gotten, the needle in the arm.
Okay.
So
That's good
it's
to know.
we don't really know why that is. It's probably because their system was already so overwhelmed that they got even more sensitive to everything they're taking in. And so in that sense, I would, if someone can't do the DNA and cell protect or doesn't have that, but has the heal, then use that one. But if you have the DNA and cell protect, then use that one, and don't use the heal,
Okay.
or rotate that, right?
Oh, that's really good advice. Okay, no, that's really helpful. All right, so thank you for that. I think that really kind of clarifies mixing and matching. Obviously, if anybody has any questions, though, just feel free to jump into the Telegram and go ahead and post your question. So the other question I'm seeing most recently, Philip, is this whole issue between what's like what should the question is usually posed, hey, I'm new here. Should I get a card or should I get a capsule? And then the other question is, and these are your flagship products. So people are saying, should I get a card? Should I get a capsule? And then you've got people saying, should I get a quantum or infinity block? And so those are the questions that I'm seeing as it relates to products. And so I was wondering if you could kind of just share, what I guess in general terms, like what's the like what if you want something X, right? What is if your objective is X, then this is the best one. If your objective is that, that kind of thing. So what would you say from a standpoint of all your different products? What's your one liner that would say, hey, if you're looking for X, then this is what for you. If you want Y, then try that. So let's start with these two guys right here. What would you recommend if someone says, should I get a frequency card or should I get a capsule?
Yeah, and I probably would have given a different answer 7 months ago, just because of where we've been going, and mentioning the DNA and cell protector card. We don't have that available as a capsule. We've been asked if we could create a capsule, actually, but it's just so much on our plate right now that so far we haven't been able to, and it's just available as a card. So for that specific use case, we can just say, yeah, use that card, you know. And for all the other use cases, it depends on if you have really something where you find something among those frequency cards that you really resonate with, that you think, okay, this is, my heart is calling for this, and I know really this is something kind of that I want to achieve or get to now, or this, because I'm always like so hyper, and I can't relax, and I'm always full of anxiety. I don't want that anymore. Like, you kind of make this decision, okay, so now I want to get into more inner peace. Then yeah, if you find one of those frequencies there that your heart resonates with, then that would be the best way to go, and to start experimenting or experiencing how the world of frequency and quantum energy actually can work for you.
Okay.
If you don't have anything very specific, or you're just, you just want to stay in good shape, you want to have your inner healer activated, your self-healing powers activated, and just be energetically supported, and obviously also mitigate EMF, then the capsule, the heal capsule, is the way to go. And it's a great starter also for people to start feeling some of this energy and experimenting with it. So yeah, that's how I would describe it. And then the capsule in general is a little bit stronger in terms of quantum energy, so it provides a little bit more energetic support in that sense. But then again, it's only available with this specific frequency set. That's how I would say. Both of them are great beginner products on one end, but on the other hand, they're all also advanced products, right? Because you can leverage them in so many different ways. And then the frequency cards, that's what people that just read through the product list, for example, usually don't understand at first, is you can not only use the frequency cards for yourself in your pocket as your inner healer in your pocket, you could use it in order to work with the quantum block later on, and actually copy these frequencies onto other objects, or make a certain product that you give away to your grandma, or your kids, and work with it that way, or even yeah even multiply them in a way, and have your family be protected in different ways. So that's what you can do also with the frequency cards. And then these other two, the quantum block and the infinity block, that's the actual technology that we also work with. That is way broader. It gives a way broader set of use cases, and it's there for the whole home, for the whole family, for your whole land. If we're talking the infinity block, really up to a big farm that it can cover. And yeah, so there are lots of different things that you can do that obviously you can't do with a capsule or a card.
Okay, because I created this diagram because I was answering a question the other day where someone wanted to ask about EMF for their car, and so let me just so it's correct to say, right, that like all of the frequency cards apply to you and your body. So if you wanted to try any one of these frequencies, then obviously just get the card, and then if you carry it around, then your body is experiencing that frequency. But for someone that, let's say, I wanted to cover their whole car, which extends beyond their physical self, then as I understand, the capsule like has kind of like a field about 6 feet in diameter, right? And so if they had a capsule, and the Heal capsule does have an EMF protective frequency, and that's been validated through third-party testing, so that if they were concerned about like driving around in an electric vehicle and I'm worried about the EMF, then if they should probably get a capsule, right? Because then they'll literally be in a little bubble of EMF, supportive frequency, right? And that would be like,
That is absolutely
okay,
correct.
so if you
Yes,
want your whole
that is
car,
correct. And
wear a capsule, right? Yeah, yeah.
well, yeah, so if it's just for you, one capsule is great. If you really want to cover your whole car and everybody else in that car, then we usually recommend 3 to 4 capsules, depending on how large the vehicle
Right,
is, because they're also very big. If there's a big van, you probably need 4 capsules that are placed in different spots. but yeah, that's how you could go about it. And if it's just yourself, then absolutely one capsule is enough. And also, what I didn't even mention earlier, there are frequency cards for plants and for dogs and cats as well. So yeah, those would be that you don't obviously leverage it for your own body. It's something that you would help your cats with, or your dog, or your plants. And we've been doing some interesting experiments actually with plants recently, and it's quite amazing how plants
Cool.
react. We have this one plant that is, we don't actually know what to do with it now, because it's gotten so big and so huge that we need to do something with it. But that's a good problem to have,
Oh, okay.
rather than it be
Okay.
dying.
Yeah, because you also have a line of pet products and like collars, right? And so these different heel frequencies for different cats or cat or dog come in a collar. But if you had the frequency, then
Yes.
what do you recommend? Just putting the card like under where they sleep, or under their water bowl or something like that? Would that be the recommendation for that?
Yes, so I can
Okay.
tell you how we do it with our dogs. So we have this Heal for Dog frequency card, and there are certain spots where dogs tend to hang out, right? And this one spot, it's this sofa type, and there's like a little um, mat on top of it, and underneath that, that's where the cart lays, and she goes there a lot, and loves it there, and that's how she can benefit from it. But then if people have a quantum block, for example, then they can certainly also, put that frequency into the dog bowl or the cat bowl and things like that. So you can start playing around with it and leveraging it even more.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes, when our dog didn't do well, after those vaccines that she had to take, for example, then we also took this card away from the sofa where she slept at night and put it there. So yeah, those are some ways and
Okay.
how to leverage it.
Yeah, what I did was because I have a block, I'm able to make my own devices. So I basically made necklaces for my dogs, and I charge them with the heel for dogs, and they wear their necklaces, and that's kind of how I did it. Okay, so the other half of that question
Right.
was, is people are saying, "Hey, should I get a Q block or an infinity block?" And so my answer to that, and if you could comment on it, is, "Hey, it's the size of the field. So a Q block would basically be 130 feet diameter field." Right. And then so it's really like, okay, I would get a Q block if I wanted my whole entire home to be in the same quantum energy field. But then an infinity block goes out to a whole kilometer, which is 0.62 miles. So it really depends on, do I want to, like, let's say, get a capsule and charge me and everything around me within 6 feet? Q block would be for a home, or a infinity block would be for a much bigger area, a neighborhood or a farm or something like that. So that's is would you say that's the primary difference is the size of the field?
I would add to that, because it's
Okay.
it's the level of consciousness. That's how we can
Okay.
describe it. Or you could say the depth and level of pure quantum energy, the strength, the concentration of the field,
Okay.
because it is stronger with the infinity block. And it's certainly even stronger with an advanced infinity block, right? People that have the infinity block package know what I'm talking about. You can do your upgrades at any time, and then, if you have a fourth generation infinity block, for example, that then creates a way denser and more concentrated field than the basic infinity block does, and certainly even more than the quantum block does. So that adds to that. So it's not just the radius; it's also really the density of the field, and it's then also the density within the plates, right? So if I put my hand inside an infinity block, there's much more possibility for certain positive effects that I'm going after, right? When I do that, then when I place it in the quantum block. So from that standpoint, that's another difference. Then there's and then, some people may wonder, okay, so, obviously, I want more consciousness, I want more or stronger quantum energy, and all of that. And I would also like it if my whole garden is covered. So it's certainly the infinity block for me. Oh, yeah, and then I want to upgrade and all that. Okay, then that's an easy question. But there's just two things of or three things maybe in regards to the quantum block. First of all, if you're a beginner and you haven't really done a lot of energy work at all, or you haven't experimented with quantum energy, then the quantum block would be the way to go. And then you can see for yourself if, at some point the infinity block may be the next step. However, there are really two use cases that we don't recommend the infinity block to be used for, but just the quantum block. That is to neutralize potentially harmful frequencies of pharmaceuticals. That is one. Let's say you have an ibuprofen that you need to take because you, I don't know, have a lot of pain. You can put that into the quantum block, and then it neutralizes these potentially harmful frequencies. So you basically take a clean product afterwards, at least a way cleaner product than before. That still does its job, but it's way cleaner and more pure than before. If you do that in the infinity block, though, then that is so strong. And by the way, in the quantum block also, there's also time limit for that, which we describe on the website. But the infinity block, it works so fast and so instant that it adds homeopathic levels of the substance you put in a way that you can't estimate anymore. How high is that homeopathic dose now that has been added? So we literally did several tests with that, with multiple different substances, and it's crazy the amount of or the level of homeopathic dose that you're adding. And then so we can't recommend it for that, because it would be just too strong, and you would always have someone like Roman look at it and see, is that still okay to take then, or so we can't recommend that. So for something like that, take the quantum block. And then for creating quantum frequency medicine, it's sort of the same thing. So if someone wanted to, charge, copy the frequency of an ibuprofen as an example onto a card, then similar things that I just described happen in the infinity block. So it's really something, if you're interested in these types of use cases, then you would want to have a quantum block. And that's why, some people have a quantum block and an infinity block.
That makes a lot of sense now that you explained it that way. I didn't think about it that way. I was thinking more like, oh, hey, put your, you buy these things to kind of protect your home, and or put something in it to broadcast out, which I'll talk to you in a second. But okay, so that's a really good point. Again, it's just like the frequencies, right? I mean, you need to really think about what is my objective, and then what's the best tool for that?
Yes.
What's the best? Okay, so and when in doubt,
can I add one thing, Kay?
Yeah.
So that just comes to mind because we just actually recently had that measured and tested, and it seems that a lot of people are familiar with David Hawkins' Power versus Force book, and also his scale, his consciousness scale that he had created, right? There were also a couple interviews lately out there that people have heard, and these consciousness levels were mentioned at that point. So what does that mean? We don't have to go into depth, and Ian Mitchell actually mentioned that on our other talk as well.
Yeah,
basically it's a scale from 0 to 1000. That's his scale that he created, and 1000 is pretty much like the infinite. It would be like
Nirvana,
like a Jesus or Buddha. I think Nirvana, that's how they described it. And then 0 is like a very low consciousness, obviously,
right?
And you can measure that. And so now we had someone that is very familiar with this and has been doing these tests, we asked them, okay, so on that specific scale, what is the consciousness level of the quantum block and the infinity block? And we also asked them to test the fourth generation infinity block. So it came out the quantum block was at is at 571. The infinity block basic at 733, which is already amazing. It's very, very high. If people that are familiar with this, they'll be stunned. And the
I'm sorry,
fourth
what was
generation.
that? Yeah, oh sorry, so quantum block
571.
okay.
571. So there's a company called FLFE out there, I think, that don't use these devices, but they use a technology that does similar things. They don't provide it, like you can't get it, but you can send them like a picture of you or an object so that they put it in, right? And so they can also create these fields, and they create a field of consciousness field of 560. That's what they create. And so the quantum block has a field of 571, and the infinity block is 733.
Okay.
And the infinity block, the fourth generation, 942.
Wow.
That is very, very high. And then you can, if people that are familiar with this, they can now probably already draw some conclusions on what's becoming possible. And, if you start really working more with intentions, for example, like what's actually possible with that.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to point out that this is based on the work of David Hawkins and his consciousness level that he came up with. In the book, it's called Power and Force or something like that, right? Or something like that.
I think, yeah, power versus force.
All right, okay, so, okay, and then they've actually measured it. Okay, so I'll put a link in the description for anyone who wants to learn more about this, because Luke Story just recently interviewed those guys from that company you just mentioned, I think FIFE or something like that, who have the ability to measure this stuff based on the work of David Hawkins. So, and also they did, I think they're calling their device or their technology like Tesla quantum something. But yeah, okay. But yeah, so this is fascinating. Okay, so this really, really appeals to my tinker. Okay, no, this is good. So again, I mean, really again, so if you're out there and you're thinking, I want to accomplish X, should I get this one or that one? Then really, that's really where you would decide which one to do. And then in this scenario as well, it goes beyond the size of the field, and it also drills into. So think about the size of the field, but then also think about what do you want to do with that device and how do you want to use it. So very good advice. And then, so that kind of ties to this other one, which is using frequencies with blocks. So one of the things that you had mentioned in the past was don't leave anything in the block too long, right? But then my question to you was, well, if I want to, let's say, like I have an infinity block, or I have a quantum block as well. But let's say I want to put the DNA and cell protective frequency, right, in my quantum block, and I want to just leave it in there permanently, so that everything within the field or everything in my home, is always being protected from that stuff, right? But then you were saying that if you leave something in too long, there's an issue. So could you kind of elaborate on, like how do you use frequencies with these blocks so that you could take any one of these frequencies, right, and then put it in the field so that everything in the field would be exposed to the frequency. And then, so that's that's to me is that's what I want to do. That's my objective. But what are the cautions, and what would you say, what's the best way to go about doing that, I guess, is my question.
Yep. Two things. The first thing is, if you put a frequency in, then do it with the intention that you want that frequency to, be transmitted throughout that field, and then that will happen. That's how to do it. And then the question is, for how long can you leave a card in there, for example? And so with a quantum block, it's not really a problem. You could leave it in there for longer. But even there, we we suggest if you want to use it just for the purpose of the frequency be transmitted across the home, and maybe you want to do that for 24 hours or maybe even a whole week, then and that applies even more so for the infinity block, because if you leave a card, any metal in there for too long, it gets too strong and too powerful, and then there is also a permanent or potentially quasi a permanent connection to this quantum space established. And if you then take it out and you were to put it into a lower level infinity block or in your quantum block, you would upgrade those, but that's not an intention, right? That's not what you want to do. If you have a quantum block and an infinity block, you do not want to upgrade your quantum block because you want it exactly at the level it is, because it's exactly designed for those use cases that we mentioned before, and then you couldn't perform those anymore in that sense. So that's why we say don't leave any metals in the infinity block for too long.
Okay.
And the nice way to go about this, though, is what you do is you just copy the frequency of whichever frequency card you want into aluminum foil, and then you can put that card away, or you put it in your pocket and leverage it that way. And you take a piece of that aluminum foil and put it into the block in order to be transmitted, right? And then, if you leave that in there for 3, 4, 5 days, and you're done with that little piece of aluminum foil, you just throw that away, and that's fine. And we mentioned that earlier. I think, if that ends up on the dump, then hey, you have some good energy there on that dump. So there's nothing to worry about it. But
Okay.
that's the way to do it.
Okay, so you drive by the landfill a year from now, and all the seagulls are just totally chilling because there's like all this interpiece foil.
There you
Okay,
go.
okay, so that's really because I'm thinking, right, like I live in a condominium, and I was thinking, well, that I'll just like put the the DNL cell frequency in my infinity block, and my entire neighborhood will be within the field and then subjected to the frequency, and it helped them, right? Like, quote, help heal our planet. But use foil instead of the card. That's the main concern, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And hey, there's one thing that just comes to mind that I at least want to mention in regards to those, David Hawkins, this consciousness scale, right? Because we are kind of used to think, okay, so highest is always the best, and I need to do that. But hey, check in with yourself. Like, where are you at in your life? And, have you been, is this whole world here totally new to you, right? Then you're like hearing about all this like the first time, and you just understood that there's more than just the physical material world, and you're just getting into this type of stuff. Then don't start too fast. Like, to go with the quantum block, that's already quite a significant field. So it doesn't need to be always the strongest, the fastest, because hey, if you're in such a highly concentrated field and you've never been anywhere close to that, it can bring up stuff also, right? And you make it easier on yourself and the cells if you get there step by step. And yeah, you can develop relatively quickly with these products and these fields, and by using them and being around it, because it's literally pure quantum energy, so it resonates perfectly with our own biofield. But again, it's not, don't always shoot for the longest, the strongest right at first.
Okay. Good advice. I'm a guy, so there's two things that I always want is bigger, better, power, and I never read directions. So you're right. I got to fight that. Okay. All right. This is, I think we're hitting and we didn't get through all the questions, and we're getting towards your dead stop. Do you have to go? I mean, or can we just answer a couple of quick questions?
We can keep going.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay. So
Let's keep going.
what I'm going to do, though, is because we went over an hour, I'm going to break this into two parts. One part will be just about the frequencies, and then the other part will be about the FAQs. So that way it's not too long and people can take a break between the parts. But I'm learning new stuff from you right now. So I want to, I'm just really, this is great. And I'm sure that people will also enjoy just kind of a clarification on on some of these FAQs. So now we talked about using frequencies with the blocks, and I think the other main question that I'm picking up from the chat is that there's lots of folks that have particular relatives with specific ailments and issues and things like that. And because of our the disclaimer here, we really need to be very very sensitive towards these are not medical devices; these are wellness devices. So I want to phrase this in such that this whole idea of QE for quote wellness, what would be the best overall generic explanation to anyone who says, I how my mother-in-law or my mom or my dog has this X problem? Will the heal capsule or the QE help them? I mean, what would you say? Because let me just jump in real quick. Is that I think I explained to someone the other day in the chat that it wasn't about what the malady was or what the issue was specific to the person or the animal. That in my mind or my opinion was that the quantum energy as we've discussed, it's not the best phrasing, but this energy brings us into harmony to in an optimal state, right, to bring us to the most optimal state that we can be within our energy being and then also balancing out our chemical processes within our physical bodies and balancing out the bioelectrical mechanisms within our bodies, because we are a three-part type of being, right? We have energy, bioelectricity, and chemical processes all going on all at the same time that composes who we are. So I was thinking that it'd be like an entrainment, like a tuning fork, and that the energy brings you to a state of wellness so that irregardless of what was wrong or what the problem was or even an injury, that it would basically help you heal. Would that be the best interpretation when everybody because we get so many people coming into the chat now that are saying, oh, I have XYZ or somebody has XYZ. Will this help for them? And my answer is as well, it'll help for anything. It's not specific to anything. We can't say that it treats anything, but what it does is it harmonizes you to a point where, you go ahead. I mean, what's your answer to that?
I almost feel inclined to not add anything, because what you've just said is a perfect explanation of that, and it's almost that we need to just have it stand there, because that's pretty much how it works. Yes, there are a few things that could be added, but I think in essence you nailed it.
Oh, cool. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, okay. So I do want to point out one thing, because I originally had a different diagram here when Philip and I were talking pre-show, and I redrew it because he pointed out, and I realized it when he was telling me this, was that we are energy beings, and within that, because I used to think of it like three different circles and we all kind of met in the middle. But it's true though, right, Philip, is that and I think you were saying earlier that if you had the optimal energy state, and there's so few people on the planet that do, but if you had the optimal state, then nothing, I mean, there would be no other issues. You would never be sick. You would never have diseases, right? Because your energy level would be would be perfect. Because that's
That
really
is,
it. We are literally energy beings first and foremost, and everything else is secondary, right?
yes, that is correct, and it's something that I know is hard to understand for a lot of people that are just very brain focused, and that was the same for me. Absolutely was the same for me. When I heard this concept the first time, that was such a long time ago, and I just didn't believe it. I thought that's nuts, right? That's, hey, no, I mean, I just, get, this guy is sick here. I just had lunch with that person, and now I'm sick too, right? That's how I thought at the time that would all come about. But I've come to realize that it's really not the case. If you get something from someone or from somewhere, you get it because you have that resonance to it, and there can be multiple reasons on why you're getting that, but it may be a reason because there needs something that needs to be learned, some development that needs to happen, or many other reasons, right? And we find also that diseases usually they can they can often actually be identified already in the energy field before they actually materialize. So people like Roman or Agni, they would be able to look at someone and see that there may be a cancer developing or showing up like in 3 to 6 months if certain things are not taken care of by then. And they just literally see that only in the energy body, and no doctor would be able to see anything yet because it's not physically there yet. And then you can literally go about and work on certain things in the energy system, and often has to do actually with our own way of life and how we approach certain things and belief system and all of that. It's often underestimated what that can do and impact. And then things can shift. So the energy is really the main, and everything else is very important though on this level as well, so we should never ignore that. That's pretty much nice though, that you're always drawing these 3 aspects, which is great. We want to take care of all of them.
Yeah, I think in terms of pictures, that's how I communicate. So yeah, because I think there's been, I'm just kind of a side question to this idea of wellness as opposed to disease. And honestly, I mean, we've been brainwashed from birth to think that we are chemical beings and we're flesh only. But if you have a vibratory frequency, your energy field, and you can check out Deepak Chopra and his books on the human biofield, and there's a lot of material on this concept. But we are energy beings. We have a biofield, and if that thing is resonating at pitch perfect frequency, then the frequency of a bacterium or pathogen, it cannot interact with us, because it just it's like it's the vibration of that frequency. So what I'm alluding to though in the next question is that there are people that have been asking, hey, if I take the if I carry around the nutritional biobase frequency card, right, can I stop taking physical supplements, save myself a bunch of money? So what's your answer to that? Because then you've got this whole, physical supplements are part of your chemical body, right? But then the nutritional biobase frequency is for your energy body. And is it possible to supplement through energy and then stop dealing with the chemical? Because I think there's people out there that do. I mean, what do you think?
Yes. So the short answer is yes. I mean, there are even people out here on Earth that wandering around that are not eating anything. So they neither take supplements nor do they eat anything, and they beautifully exist. That's a concept that is there's not a lot to read about, because I don't think it's very common, nor is it wanted that that concept even is something that we think about.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's possible, but we don't need to go into that really. It doesn't apply to the vast majority of the people anyway. But yeah, it's also possible in that sense to really just supplement with frequencies. However, that's not possible for everybody, and we find 2 different groups. Really, one group seems to still maintain or create even optimal vitamin and mineral levels just by using the frequencies and not actually taking the physical substances or nutrients anymore as such as supplements. However, there's this other group. I would argue that's the bigger group, and I belong to that group, frankly, as well.
Yeah.
That still takes physical supplements, but it is suddenly in a way where it seems that the cells can leverage the supplements way better than without leveraging the frequencies, meaning that it's almost as if the bioavailability of the products increases in what the cells can take in and absorb and leverage versus before. So I notice that, frankly, that now if I take a liposomal vitamin C. That's one of those things that I like to take, and it's just so much more powerful after I've started to leverage frequencies. And sometimes I don't also take it. I don't take anything like physical every day, right? I do resets and all that, and I try to rotate it a little bit. But then, if I feel something coming, I mean, I rarely get sick on that level, really. But if I feel like, oh man, I may get a cold or something like that, I instantly start doing more vitamin D, more liposomal vitamin C, and all that. And I notice that it's kicking in so much faster, and it's so much more powerful. And yeah, that is something that a lot of people actually have reported.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I never thought about that, but you're right. You're right. You're right. So I guess what I want to leave everybody with the thought is that we are our physical realities and even our non-physical reality of what we think we are is comprised of three different things. So your wellness is a three-part, you know, you know, and thing, right? And in order to treat yourself or to raise your vibration to health and wellness, you need to think about all three, and it's not ever going to be just one. So the one thing that I've always dabbled in is bioelectrics, and I just want to say that if you just go to a person wearing a white coat and they give you chemicals and you don't address the other two, you're only going to get a partial solution, and I'll leave it at that. Um, okay, so the last question on the most frequency one is people are they jump in the chat and they go, oh, I've hurt my knee, I hurt my elbow, can I use the one of the blocks to help to just help me, and so that kind of comes into the whole idea of body charging and then whole body charging in terms of like as a tinker, the first thought I ever had when I heard about the block was I want to stick my head in it. Yeah, it's just that was my intuitive reaction to hearing that you created a quantum block was I want to stick my head in it. I don't know why that was the first thought that popped in my mind, and I have since done so, and maybe that explains why I'm the way I am. So I do want to just talk about charging your body so that everybody's really clear on how to do that. But then also, like if I had a part of my body, like I hurt my foot. So no, you and I had chatted about this a while ago. I did draw a diagram. So, and because there's a whole idea here, and I think the thing is let me just kind of, the thing is that there's a maximum distance, right, between the plates until and then if it exceeds that distance, then the field is disrupted, right, and the field goes away. So the very first question though is like if I wanted to charge a larger object like my body, and this is I just want to make sure these numbers are correct as I understand them, but if I want to charge my body and I have a Q block, then the maximum distance I could separate the plates out is 6 feet. Is that correct? That's the right number, right?
I would say about 7 or 8 feet is easily possible. So
Okay.
yeah, that's no big deal. And we actually then stopped testing it after that. So, but yeah, basically, what I would say is that there's no human on Earth that could not fit into the plates. There's no one probably 9 feet
Well,
tall.
except for the giants
Hopefully.
that live in Afghanistan.
Otherwise, if there is one that's listening that's 9 feet tall, please reach out and we'll do the test
Well,
with you.
honestly, I don't think the giants, living in caves do that. But anyway, we'll go. Okay, so now the infinity block. The thing about the infinity block is you have to keep the three plates together, right? And so, like, and Jack Newell had a great suggestion on how to keep these together. Just use a zip tie, and you have to keep the nuts in between the plates because you need those gaps still there. So then, if you took this apart, you need to then zip tie all the nuts together on all four corners. So you'd have a plate and a plate, a triple plate up here and a triple plate that would look exactly the same as this, except without the rods, right? So if you separate those plates, what's the maximum distance for an infinity block that you could separate out the plates and then charge anything in between?
I actually cannot even say what the maximum
Oh,
distance is because we haven't tested it to that extent. But yeah, you can easily do the 15 feet. That should be no problem whatsoever. We because I think I that's what we tested, but then we stopped
okay.
testing the further distances. Yeah, because we didn't think there's more that you need to do. If you want to charge your whole house, take a picture of your whole house and put it inside,
Ah,
leave it in there for 2 weeks, and then you may, and if you have I mean, yeah, that's what I
okay.
would do then at that case. But
That's a good idea. I'm going to do that next. Okay. So yeah, because I remember this number from a prior interview. So the minimum is 15. You know that it works for sure, which means you could put the plates on either side of your car garage, drive slowly, through the garage, and you're going to charge your car, right? Okay. All right. So there's the idea there and how you can charge bigger objects. So okay, good. And then of course, if you take a picture of it, and that's a whole nother subject, putting pictures in blocks. Okay, so going back to the charging your body. Now, you and I had chatted a while back that the field is distinctly between the plates. So it's a rectangular field, it doesn't bow out. So if anything between the plates is what gets charged, right? So if I were to like lay down and put the plates head to toe, right, then this would be the field that would be created between the plates. And by the way, how quickly would the field set up? Like, would I have to like put that into place and then wait like an hour and then lay down, or the moment I set them up, they're good?
so if you've already used these blocks before,
Oh, okay,
then it's almost instant. So maybe
okay.
maybe just in case, like wait a minute or two, but it's super quick. Just if it's a new block basically that you want to establish it at first, and that can take a few hours until it's fully there. And yeah, so it's pretty much that way. So if mm, it's that way and it's not that way. So what we found, if you take a hard metal, for example, and it's one piece, and you have it inside your quantum block for it to be charged, and it just overlaps a little bit on the side, it would still cover it because it's almost as if it's the task to charge this. The same thing is with the body. So if you lay in there, yes, you have this rectangular field pretty much, but all of this, so most of the cells of your physical body are exposed then, and are in this field, actually in this quantum energy space. It's not just a field. And most likely, because of the instant connection that the cells have with each other, all of the cells are suddenly benefiting from it and are within this. So we've tested this, and it's literally, if you lay like this, you're pretty much all in,
Oh, okay.
if
All
that
right.
makes sense, even though
No,
this is
no, yeah.
hard to explain.
No, no, no. Okay, so like okay, because this like I have a belly, so mine would be like outside the field. And so right, and so, but in that case of like a belly outside of the field, because and or actually, like this thing honestly would be because if you'd be laying on a bed, then you'd be like right there, right? It'd be like half your body. But you're saying that that's fine. It'll still work because you'll still get a full
Yes.
body charge. Because if I do this much of my body, the rest of my body will then entrain, right? The energy field will entrain, and I'll get the experience, or I'll get the effect of being my immersing my entire body, even though the field is or the space is rectangular. So that's right, right? So nothing to worry about.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so if you want to do
Yeah.
full body charging, this is fine. Even though you might stick out here and there. Okay, and then the other thing too, though, like you and I are saying, we're like, hey, if you just had like, I like one day I hurt my knee and I stuck it in my Q block and I just left it in there like 15 minutes and it really actually helped. So if you just had like a part of your body, you could just stick it in there for a few minutes and you would get that part, right? But if I just stuck my hand in, would it affect my whole body? Because I think Bessa showed that it does, right? They tested
Yes.
just people
Yes.
stick it in their hand,
Yes.
and it okay. So then it means bottom line is you could charge your whole body like this, or you stick your hand in there and your whole body will get the benefit of it. And then, but however, let's say if I hurt my wrist, if I just stuck my wrist in, then that's good too, right? Just if I want to just to like target a specific area of my body.
Yes. So it
Okay.
seems that if you put your whole body in, that it's a little bit more powerful in that sense. But if you put your hand in it, indeed,
All right.
all of your cells still benefit from it.
Okay.
Absolutely. And your energy system as well, by the way.
Right. Yeah, because that's kind of what I want to do is I want to start doing like a weekly, body charge. Because I actually have a firm because like I said, I dabble, right? I dabble in bioelectric. So I have a very large PEMF machine and I do a full body zap every, once a week to raise my ATP levels. And then I was thinking, well, I should do that in combination with a quantum zap, once a week and just kind of like amp up my energy level with that. So I was kind of just trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. So yeah, okay. Now, so there's a follow on question because I was having a chat with one of the members yesterday, and I just was wondering, is there any detrimental or any cautions that you have about doing let's say, put your head in the Q or the Q block or infinity block or your whole body with like using the Q block versus the infinity block versus an upgraded infinity block? Are there any concerns that or anything you noticed you and Roman about, hey, maybe not leave your head in there for 30 minutes, or maybe if you have like an infinity block, seventh generation or something, then maybe you shouldn't be using it, or anything like that? Has anything come up like that you've noticed that maybe something to think about? Because the one comment that I've only read, it was where you said once that you put yourself in the block because you weren't feeling well, and it just made you really thirsty. You had to drink a lot of water. So,
Yes. So that's
yeah. So how? Yeah, so, what do you think? I mean, is there any cautions people should know about?
Well, in general, first thing is always the advice, follow your intuition, tune in with yourself, and just, feel what is a good time for you. And don't think about what is a good time for you. Feel what is a good time for you. Because our brains may be like, well, I'm just going to do this for an hour, for 2 hours right away, and then just want to see what happens. That's one way to go about it, but it's just better to really ask your inner voice, your higher intelligence, if you will. Okay, so what is good? And you don't have to have an answer because you can lay in there, and at some point you'll get this impulse. Okay, but well, maybe it's now enough. And that's the first thing to keep in mind. The second thing is that detox effects, so physical detox effects,
Ah,
can settle in,
yeah,
certainly. And then also, because there's really always something transformatory happening that when we're in this field, so that often we can't really notice on a physical level or even on an energetic level. There's transformation happening, there's shift happening. I mean, we can see if we look under a dark field microscope just with what happens
yeah,
with
your
the
blood.
blood
Yeah,
so quickly. So, and that's just one thing that is happening. So maybe, if you do something like this, then make sure you can take a little rest afterwards, and drink water, all right, because of that. But there's other than that, there's really nothing negative, no depletion or anything that we have ever noticed whatsoever. It's really just these things to be cautious. And it is a real quantum energy space. So it's definitely different than just laying on a sofa if you're within that space.
have you heard of anyone sleeping in it?
Yeah, we had actually one person that has slept in it, and
Are
it
they
went really well. But
okay?
hey, that's not anything that I would recommend. I haven't done it myself.
Yeah,
But I may actually test it at some point, and it may be awesome. But we also want to be mindful of that. So that's
yeah.
if someone is already quite tuned in and they know for themselves, they can do this and they've experimented enough. Hey, go for it. But I can't officially recommend that. I've taken. I've actually been. I had my picture in the Infinity Block once for the whole night because I forgot to take it out. That was actually pretty cool. But also, if you just got an Infinity block new, then don't try it. You
Yeah,
want to
get
get
used
used
to
to
it
this.
first, right? Yeah, because
I've done it many times. So
I know, as a tinker, I actually want to sleep. Well, not my whole body, but I want to sleep with my head in the Q block just to see what the effect on my dreams is. It's one of my things I want to try. But I also, like Enoch in the chat kind of brought up the whole issue like a month or so ago about, putting DNA or putting a fingernail in the block to then using, through quantum entanglement, sending that energy to you through entanglement. And so I tried that, and I got to say that I put a fingernail into my Q block, and I literally had this like sixth sense intuitive thing where I could feel the energy flowing into me, even though the Q block was in the other room. So it was kind of a weird thing. So that's something. I mean, what do you think about that? This whole quantum entanglement using DNA, a DNA sample like a
yes,
fingernail, and putting that in the block instead of a picture, right, or with the picture,
yep.
but just being able to then transmit that energy into you directly into your DNA, and you're picking it up because like you're an antenna. So I mean, is that
Yep.
something that you've been
It
trying?
definitely works.
Oh yeah, okay.
100% works. What we just don't know yet, just because we haven't tested it, is okay, is any of these two things stronger or better to do? All of the quantum entanglement tests and studies that
Uh-huh.
we've performed and others have performed with our products have been with photographs. So we don't have any such data in regards to DNA. That's just something on the horizon. Probably in the next couple of weeks, we'll do a few tests in regards to that to also tell people, hey, it's actually exactly the same, or hey, this works a little different.
Okay.
This may work better with this. So we'll come up with that information as we have it. But it does work. We know that. So
Cool. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so then the whole issue about charging your head or whatever, QB versus IB, it's all about the strength and the higher vibration. So if this is new to you, you probably don't want to stick your head in the infinity block just yet, you know, right? And so just take it, just in other words, take it slow, everybody. But there are some very interesting results coming from people who are doing it. And obviously I will share with you what happens when I sleep in it. So but yeah,
yeah,
this is really cool. I mean, it really is, and and let me just this gotten so long. I'm going to break it out into individual questions, but I want to add something. I was telling Philip the other day about putting my fingernail in the block, and I just want to share this with you. And I would love to hear if anyone duplicates this weird little thing that happened to see what happens to you. But as I was telling Philip the other day, when I had my fingernail in my Q block. I forgot about it, and it had been in there for like a week. But meanwhile, I live with my two dogs, and I later found my Q block had been kind of like a whole bunch of dog hair had floated into it, and so I don't know, maybe like for 5 or 6 days, my Q block was sitting there with my fingernail in there, plus a bunch of dog hair from my two dogs. And the funny thing is, and Philip, you maybe can comment on why you don't want to mix people. Like don't put two people in the block at the same time, pictures, right? Or DNA. But what I wanted to share though is that week with my dogs, you know how you live with your dogs, right? But it's like that when we were blended into the Q block together, our DNA. I swear to God that my I was bonding like with my dogs. They were more cuddly. They were more attentive to me. I was like more attracted to them. And like I wanted to pet them more often. And it was just weird. Like I was thinking to myself, wow, I was thinking, wow, am I really bonding with my dogs this week? I wonder, is it a full moon or whatever? And then I found the Q block and I went, oh my God, I because the one thing Philip always says is don't put two people in there or their frequencies will blend together. And sure enough, it's like that. It was just really weird. But I was like, I got really close to my dogs, and then I discovered
that is
all of our
awesome.
DNA was being mixed together in the cube block. And this is a true story. It was just the weirdest week because when I finally cleaned all the dog hair out of the cube block, and I took my fingernail out. Then we all went back to normal, where they pretty much ignore me until they're hungry, right? Um, and then I was like, that was so I'm like, okay, I got to try it again just to see if I could duplicate it. But so okay, so why? So is that something people should be really aware of? Is when you're charging yourself, either with a picture or a DNA or a body part, that You know, what happens when you put someone else in the block with you? Am I the
Yep.
first person that
Yeah. So
blended with my animals and then we bonded really weirdly? I mean, what's your take on it?
so yeah. No, I mean, I can totally relate to that, and that makes absolute sense. And it's somewhat a great experience and story also. So I think that's great that you're sharing that. And in general, we just tell people don't mix it. Like you would also not want to mix different objects together. Mm, because indeed energies can commingle, and then you commingle stories, you commingle topics, and you may put a person in there, a male, and then some random female, and then they maybe they'll fall in love. I mean, this is something that can happen. That doesn't need to happen, but could happen. And um, it's just because of these things and some unknown factors, that because it would take further testing, we recommend to just not do that. With the dogs, I think it's in general fine. We know that it's also fine with like putting a whole family in, or a couple. If both parties or all parties are fine with it, then hey, that's also no big deal. But I wouldn't put two different random people in there. It's just something where indeed you're commingling frequencies. And yeah, with your dogs, that's a different story. That's your family in a way also, right?
Yeah.
So, and my dog belongs to our family, and you're so close anyway. And that may actually be a great experience, as well as it may be a great experience for a couple to actually know. There's no couple on earth that doesn't have issues, right, in their relationship. I don't think that exists, right? Because that's also how we grow. And so yeah, maybe that we have found actually that it could have therapeutic, or add support in that sense, right? Again, it's hard to tell what the outcome is of these things, but there's consciousness, there's quantum energy added to whatever story is going on in a relationship. And it may bring up stuff, it may solve stuff, it may help work through stuff or calm things. That's really what people need to look at together. But it's something definitely worth trying. Hey, if you're a couple and you have one of those blocks, and you feel like, hey, this is something we want to try, then go ahead and try that, right? It just needs the buy-in of both people, because you don't want to step on over anybody's boundaries.
Yeah, no, that's a very fascinating aspect towards body charging, either through photo, physical, or DNA sample. It was just the weirdest experience where my dogs all of a sudden were more cuddly, because you know how dogs are, they like just ignore you sometimes. But yeah, that was interesting. So, word to the wise, experiment carefully, and make sure that nothing, I mean, I always think of that movie, The Fly, right, where the little fly gets into the transporter. So you got to be careful what fall. So keep an eye on your Q block while you're doing this, and don't let anything fall in there you don't want in there. But so it's just something else to think about. But yeah, thanks. That was a great answer. Thanks for your time. I'm so sorry I try not to suck up all your time, but I have so many questions for you. But thanks, Philip, so much for today. That answers the 5 top FAQs about that I'm picking out of the queue, and maybe I don't know, in the future we'll pick another 5. And if you folks find this helpful, please let us know in the Telegram chat group, and because we're trying to put out more user information and user guides and things like that to help people understand the technology, the frequencies, and how to use them. So let me wrap it up by saying thank you, everyone. Especially thank you, Philip. I really appreciate your time today. Now, if you want to reach Philip, definitely, or me, you can definitely find us in the Quantum Power Group on Telegram. All the links will be in the description below. Of course, Leila Quantum Tech is you just have this. You just redid your website, so it looks really nice. This is the new website, so it's looking pretty good right here. So, and yeah, this is great. I love the new look. So that's new websites out there, and of course, I'm Kay Elmer. I'm at the Tinkers Academy, and the link will be below. That's my blog, and then of course this YouTube channel. So, but yeah, thank you very much, Philip. Any parting words? Anything else you want to let the users know?
Well, thank you first of all for your time. This has been great, and I feel yeah, you're totally right. It was also necessary because there are always these questions, and I'm glad we've taken the time so for this and answered those. Hopefully, it was helpful for many people. Yeah, maybe just another tink because you mentioned you wanted to put your head into the Q block while you sleep. People out there can maybe start with a test when you take a nap. Maybe if you usually don't take a nap, maybe just pick a day where you would like to take a nap and take your time to do that, and then put a picture of you, a current picture of you inside your quantum block or your infinity block while you're taking that nap,
Oh,
and
that's a
and
good idea.
then
Okay.
maybe experiment with that and see how that does. So I've had some good results. I rarely ever take naps, but I've tested this and I've had great results. Actually, some really deep relaxation that came out of it. Doesn't mean that it is the same for you because we all are different and have all our different issues. But hey, that would be a
Yeah,
good way to start
a good idea.
without having to physically put it in.
Yeah, no, a great idea. Thanks. And by the way, if anybody does any of the crazy stuff that we're talking about, in terms of just testing out things and trying new things, and hey, please let us know what happens, right? I mean, we have this Telegram chat group all about the quantum energy and Leila and so, hey, if you try any of this stuff, please share it with the rest of us. That's how I learn. That's how we find out what works and what doesn't work. And so I'm always very happy that people will come in there and share some of the experience. And if it wasn't for Enoch, we wouldn't even have started doing all this DNA stuff. So, hey, thank you, Enoch, and thank you everybody out there for participating. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. I'm going to break this up and publish this here in the next day or so, and we'll get it all going. So, thank you, Philip. Really appreciate your time. Aloha, everybody.
Thank you, Kay.